Hey, it's Alan, and I just wanted to let you know that you can now listen to the ongoing history of new music early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime. I love hearing stories from people who were actually there. My grandfather is approaching his 101st birthday, which means he was 10 years old before the first commercial radio station received a license. The dude predates all this. He has stories about the rise of the automobile and airplanes and television. He can talk with authority about historical figures, politicians, wars, events, because, well, the guy was there. I just wish he hadn't thrown out all those old gramophones that he had in the attic that happened around 1950. Those things would be worth a lot of money these days. Anyway, to me, that's way better than reading about something or seeing it on TV. There is nothing like the personal perspective. Which brings me to music. Some of the best books I've ever read are oral histories, collections of quotes and recollections and reminiscences from people who were there at the time. Again, nothing like the personal touch. This is why when I had a chance to talk to someone who was right in the middle of the whole Madchester thing in Manchester, England in the late 80s and early 90s, someone whose brain cells are still intact, I thought, awesome, let's do this. This is part 2 of an oral history of Madchester.
This is the ongoing history of new music, the podcast edition with Alan Cross.
From 1990, Commercial Rain from the Inspiral Carpets, one of the bands that formed the Holy Trinity of Madchester, that crazy and wildly popular scene in Manchester, England that flourished in the late 80s and early 90s. This was music that set the stage for much of the British indie music that was to come for the next 15 years. In fact, we're still feeling the impact of Madchester today. Hello again, I'm Alan Cross, and this is part 2 of an oral history of that whole thing. And our storyteller is Gaz Whelan, the former drummer for the Happy Mondays. Now, along with the Carpets and the Stone Roses, the Mondays exemplified what Madchester was all about. And Gaz had a very unique perspective on what actually happened as things peaked and then crashed. On part 1, we heard about the rise of this new generation of bands. And for the longest time in the early 90s, it looked like the party would never end. It did, of course. And the Mondays had to take some of the blame. Okay, a lot of the blame. Let's pick it up just as the Mondays were riding the massive success of their Pills, Thrills, and Bellyaches album through 1991.
So, Pills and Thrills and Bellyaches comes out. You guys are, that's, a huge sensation at home, an international sensation. Factory Records is flying high. Yeah. But like every other band on Factory Records, you never really had a contract with them.
Apparently we did, though. We don't remember it, but apparently we did have some sort of contract with them, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we did have a contract, and I think New Order did, because when London, but I think it was one of them kind of factory record, Tony, we didn't have a contract, but I think we did. Yeah, I remember signing something. I signed something. No, we did. We had a contract, but it was they'd let us do what we want. They were great.
Well, yeah, they let you do what
and
you
Tony
want.
loved it. Everyone at factory hated us, apart from Tony loved us. Everyone hated us. Oh, actually, no, not everyone. Actually, a couple of people liked us there, but for the most part, the other bands and the other managers and the other people didn't really take to us.
Well, you broke the company.
No, we didn't. That's another myth. We didn't. That was New Order had an album out for a couple of years. They owed us a lot of money. In fact, they owed us a lot of money. We spent quite a bit in Barbados, but not as much as I think we spent $500,000. It cost altogether, but it wasn't. That didn't break them. Bad management broke them. And they actually after that, when they disbanded, when they went under, they owed us a lot of money.
Well,
and we owed tax.
Okay, Tony wasn't. Yeah, well, we'll talk about that in a second. But Tony wasn't the greatest businessman. He was an artist and a supporter of the artist more than
shrewd, but he wasn't. He wasn't. He was a great, he was a great guy. And Tony was a bit of a. Me and Sean become really good friends with Tony.
Do what you're doing, say what you're saying, go where you're going, think what you're thinking, sounds good to me.
The Happy Mondays in Loose Fits from their 1990 album Pills and Thrills and Bellyaches. All right, you're going to want to hear these next stories from Mondays drummer Gaz Whelan. It was finally time to make a follow-up album. it didn't go well at all.
When you went to Barbados and you went to Eddie Grant's studio, how many cars were destroyed?
Well, I don't know. It was.
You don't know.
The roads are really bad, but they were. But it was about. I think it was about. I thought it was 9, but then someone told me it was more. But it was. We had a lot of time on our hands. It was. We was. If you know Barbados, all the tourist side is on the.
It's on the west side.
On the west side, because of the water, because of the Caribbean, and we were on the east side. Eddie Grant Studio was a great studio.
It's down in the southeast, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's Atlantic. So it's not the. I think it's Atlantic.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. So it's really windy. So there's no tourists there. So it's local. So we were there. The roads aren't done in the tourist area, and we had. It was January, so it'd been bleak in England, and we had a pretty good time there. It was. We had the first night we arrived. We stayed at this place called Sam Lord's Castle.
I know exactly where you're talking about, on the East Coast.
On the East Coast, we got kicked out.
I can't believe that they would even take your reservation.
It was great. The night we arrived there, we'd had a long flight, and they greeted us with rum. Bad mistake. And then there was some cabaret band on. I'll never forget them. They were called Spice or the Spice Boys, something mad like that. And we all went to bed. PD, our keyboard player, who was crazy to say the least. We got up for breakfast early. We were having breakfast, and we see him getting escorted by the police. And he'd got so annoyed that he hated the cabaret band that he'd got up stage and attacked one of them.
And that's how it all started.
So that's how it all started, and then it just went down from there. But it was. I had a good time there. I enjoyed it. I didn't get in, because when you play drums, you're in the studio the first week yourself, right. So you get to know the producer, you get, and you hang around. And I used to sit in the studio all the time anyway, to go through it. I was the boring one who liked to, with the music and stuff, like, it'd be like he is with us now. But, so I didn't get involved in all that. I was, I was drinking a lot of local rum. I was self-medicating with a lot of local herb. And that was it. I was, and I was happy. Vanessa, my wife, came over and she stayed with us, and she was there. As all our families came over, we had a party with about 30 people at one point. So she came over, and we went to rent a house just outside the studio. And we had our own time, so we were great. So it was. I just got to say, the first night I was in the studio, I finished playing drums. It must have been about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was driving back, and I was looking for a little bar, and the guy said, "Oh, there's a little bar. It's like a shack. There's a little bar here." So he parks the car up, so I'll go with him. So I'm sat at the bar, and it's literally a shack. And I'm drinking, and it must have been about 2 or 3 hours, getting the early hours. Then all of a sudden, we hear this noise, and this car comes through the front bit of the bar. Like, it's not a proper wood. The wood just jumps up in this car. And everyone jumps up, and then Sean walks in. And he said, "I heard you was here." And the
guy drove into the bar.
They drove right into the bar. Literally, I remember it being here, and he must have come. He came 3 foot into the bar. And the guy owned it was an ex-cricket, West Indian cricketer who had a bit of money. So he said, "Oh, sorry, we'll pay for it, it's fine. And the guy was over said, "Yeah, they're from the studio, we'll pay for it, it's all fine." It was fine. But the car actually came through.
So did that get billed back to factory or recoup from you?
Yeah, your bands pay for everything. The band are paying for everything, don't they? I mean, in fact, I don't believe we bankrupted. I think they used that. I don't think we did. I really don't think we did.
I do remember seeing Bez with his arm in some kind of medical device.
Oh, with Bez, Bez wants to always prove something, and he got off in he had a Jeep without the proper kind of Jeep, and he went off into the marshlands, and where the studio was, there was a pool, and I just saw the pool. We was looking out one day, and there's this marshlands, there's this Jeep upside down, and he was crushed. He turned upside down, he was crushed, and he had all these pins in his arm, and then 2 days about 2 weeks after, he was trying to jet ski in the and broke it again. And we said to the guy, but he was, he must have been about a week in, and I'm in the studio, and the guy, Mark, I think he was called, who worked with Chris, a guy from New York, said, "You've got to go up to the pool and have a look." And I knew they were spending a lot of time in the local crack dens, because we knew about it. And he said, "Go up to the pool." And I went up to the pool, and they turned the sun loungers. Do you call them sun loungers? Sunbeds. They have around the pool. They turned him. They made a crack den out of him. They stacked up into a crack den, and I was like, "Oh!" I just thought it was hilarious. But,
okay, so at some point,
we knew it was ending. We knew he was going to come.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. When you get to that level of goofiness,
we knew.
You knew that, okay, we've peaked
Yeah.
And now we're just milking it.
Oh, we knew. I think, but from that very first Top of the Pops thing, we thought we were milking it every week. We thought, that's it, it's going to go any second. Let's just milk it. Whereas if you've been smart, you don't have to do that and you could last longer.
The Happy Mondays with a single called Judge Fudge that helped bridge the gap between pills, thrills, and bellyaches and whatever came next. And I can tell you that what came next was a disaster. Hold on.
You're listening to The Ongoing History of New Music, the podcast edition with Alan Cross.
This is part 2 of an oral history of the Madchester period in England. Our guide is Happy Mondays drummer Gaz Whelan. And we're at the point where the party starts to go terribly, terribly wrong.
But it wasn't just you. I mean, by this time, the Roses had gotten to their whole Silvertone thing, and they were unable to get anything together.
Yeah.
The Inspiral Carpets had gone past their best day. The Charlatans were still hanging around, although they were going to have keyboard player problems.
Yeah. Charlatans have done well, actually. Still doing well.
They're still together.
Yeah.
And then, Noel Gallagher comes out of nowhere eventually.
I remember him well.
Do you remember him playing roadieing for the Carpets?
Yeah, I remember him well, yeah. I remember. I do remember it well. I was going to say something then, but I knew he'll get... I've never said it to him, and he'll get really upset if he ever said it. But yeah, I remember I did an interview, a radio interview, and I went back into the ascender downstairs, and he'd fallen out with Sean, because Sean had some words with his spirals, but I hadn't, because I knew Clint was okay. And I kind of knew Noel through him, and we got to talk, and Noel said, it's a great interview, and having a few drinks. He said, if you ever need anyone to do your drums, I'll do it. But whenever I see him now, you can see when we're in company. On one day I'll say in front of everybody. But, he's not done bad, has he?
No, he's okay.
He's done okay.
The Charlatans, a band from the original Madchester era who, despite all the odds, are still together. Back to Gaz Whelan. Here's the real story of the album that helped bring down Factory Records.
So let's, you come back to Factory Records with no vocals on this new record.
Yeah, no vocals, yeah.
Because Sean couldn't be arsed, or it just didn't work out.
But that wasn't unusual. That wasn't unusual. We'd write albums and he didn't, and then we'd do the music. We'd have like 10 songs and he didn't have the lyrics for him. So that wasn't unusual. It wasn't. It wasn't. He didn't. I think he'd done one song, so that wasn't very usual. That wasn't usual, but it wasn't unusual because he'd always do the lyrics later. He never got involved in the music ever. Never got involved in the music whatsoever. He just did the lyrics and he always did them later. So it wasn't so much of a concern.
So the Yes Please album doesn't really work.
You know what? It's Bez's favourite album. It's had since it's been like it's about, without trying to sound grand. It's a bit like Exile on Main Street. Now reviews about people. It actually got good reviews. It went to number 3. It did okay. It's out of I think there's 10 songs in it. There's 6 that are good. I think there's 4 that really let it down.
So I think Stinking Thinking.
As its moment, Stinking Finger's a great tune.
Judge Fudge from that record? Yeah.
Judge Fudge is, I don't know. I don't know whether that was on that. Judge Fudge is one of my favourite Monday songs, actually. Judge Fudge. I don't know whether it was on that album. I'm not sure. But there's Cut 'em Loose Blues. There's a couple of great tunes on it, but it wasn't an album. It was a collection of, putting together songs. I think, he wasn't
recorded by a bunch of people wrecking cars, doing crack.
But that was normal, it was just different, I think Bummed was the Ecstasy album. Pills and Throughs was Everything, was the LA Everything, whatever you can get all of an LA album. And then that was Herb and whatever, they were doing, yeah.
The Happy Mondays and Stinkin' Thinkin' from the Yes Please album, the record that pretty much marked the end of whatever Madchester was. We'll sift through the debris in just a second.
Now, back to the ongoing history of new music, the podcast edition with Alan Cross.
This is an oral history of Madchester, a look at that time in Manchester, England, when it seemed that the city was the center of some strange, wonderful musical universe. Here's more from Gaz Whelan of the Happy Mondays.
So Manchester, that the Madchester thing comes to an end somewhere around, what do you figure, 92, 93?
I think we split up in 93, yeah, so something 93 maybe, yeah.
Because it had burned very brightly, very hard for about 4 years.
Which is usual. That's usual.
Yeah, that's about right. I remember being on this side of the Atlantic and looking forward to the import records that would come out every Wednesday here.
Oh, is that what I did? Oh, right, okay.
And, it seemed that every week there was a band or a song that was either from Manchester or wanted to be from Manchester. And it was just an absolutely glorious time because of all these great records that were coming out. And but then suddenly it dries up because people the bands burn out, people lose interest in it, and they move on to the next.
Something happens, yeah.
And then there's a bit of a lull, and then Britpop comes along. But Britpop's foundations were essentially Manchester.
Well, Manchester's foundations are originally Northern Soul and stuff, and I think I think it's bizarre. Even now, it's not left. Every TV show, every comedy show in the UK, if they want to portray any musician, if it's all set in Manchester, isn't it? Everything's set in Manchester. Everything in the UK, every TV programme about,
Royal Family.
Yeah, everything. And then what's that one? That's Shameless and all. It's all that, and it's kind of, they've got that stereotypical Mancunian now. So, and then obviously since Oasis, but it's bands, Manchester's always been, I don't know why Manchester's been this great musical city, bands from the Bee Gees to, the guy, the singer of David Jones from the Monkees, the singer of the Monkees was from Manchester, to, the guy at Crosby, Stills and Nash, Graham Nash was from Manchester. I don't know, it's right across the board. I don't know why. There's loads of bands. There's loads. Oasis, Buzzcocks of Fall, James, Godley and Cream, Badly Drawn Boy, Elbow, John Mayall, Star Sailor, Verve, Phil Lynott, grew up in Manchester. Smiths, New Order, Simply Red, Hollies. It goes on and on. And there's just bands and bands and bands.
Well, things have changed a little bit now too, because Manchester has been gentrified. You've got a. I've never been, but I've seen pictures of the glorious buildings and great places. The student population has exploded, and it looks like a really cool place to be.
Well, it's always had. It's got 3 universities: Manchester, Met, and Salford. It's had the biggest gay community outside London, biggest student population in Europe. So it's got all these things coming together. It's now become a very European city. It's the capital of the North. It's the London of the North. So it's changed. The grittiness has gone, but it's still, it's not. You have to go far to find it.
You've got Manchester United, Manchester City. You put the two rosters together, and you have a payroll that's somewhere around $850 million between the two teams. That's not a poor city. Oh
no, it's got money. It's a very left wing working class city. Very, it's a very it's like Manchester and Liverpool always has, but kind of Liverpool kind of got left behind, didn't it? Yeah. Well, it's age of industry's gone now, isn't it? Age of industry, but but in England, a lot of things are based around working class people. It's based around, especially in Manchester. When we grew up, there's 3 things. It's the Holy Trinity. It's music, it's football, and it's fashion. Them 3 things are really important. None more important than the other, and they go together.
Explain to me the social significance of following either City or United.
Well, he's a City fan. I'm a United fan. It's different. There's no significance to it now. It was areas. So West and North Manchester was mainly United. South and East was City. United was originally the Catholic team. City was the Protestant team. City initially was a rich club. United was the working man's club because it's set up by the trade unions. But that's not the case now. So it's certainly not the case now. So there's no really significance. But it's an identity. I don't know what the difference is. But the City it's not just about your football team. You can never change your team. It's about your football team says everything about what you're about. But times have changed. The last 10 years, it's all kind of got lost in the.
Well, you've got an American owning one, and then a guy from Dubai or United Arab Emirates owning the other,
and probably going to buy United out as well, soon, yeah. So but it's kind of changed anyway. But that's how it used to be.
So the Mondays had to get back together a couple of times for tax reasons.
No, that was just Sean saying that to kind of as a bit of a safety net in case it all went pear-shaped. Just so it looked like the thing about it's kind of like not trying to look like we needed to get back or we wanted to. Sean's got this thing where he doesn't like to enjoy it. If it looks like he's enjoying it, it's not. That's a real Manchester thing as well. You've got to look like you're not enjoying it. If you're enjoying it, it's not very cool, you know. So it's that kind of, it's a very English thing as well, isn't it? But especially a very Manchester thing. So it's that was kind of thing is, oh God, I've got to do it. But it wasn't for tax reasons, no.
So how many times did you get back together?
Only the once. We never really split up after that. We just took a break. It was only really the once.
And now you're done with them.
Yeah, me and Bez had enough. We did Australia last year, and I started Hippie Mafia, and I was like, I knew I had to leave one to concentrate on the other. And it got to the point where Sean, was cutting the set, so he wanted to do 20 minutes. Didn't hate doing it. And if you hate doing it, you
can't do a 20-minute set.
I know you can, and we was headlining festivals where they want you to do an hour and a half, and we was doing like 50 minutes, and we'd go off and we'd play for 20, we had to pay him to come in the studio to do recordings, and we was doing a new album which was sounding great, weren't it? The new tunes, and no, it really was. It was sounding as good as the early stuff, really fresh, and he'd pay me to come in the studio. I was like, what do you mean pay you to come in the studio? So, but I think he'd got to the point where he just didn't what he wanted to do his solo stuff, and I wanted to do this. So I think it was all kind of we'd all had enough of each other.
The Happy Mondays with their version of Thin Lizzy's The Boys Are Back in Town. Now, if you listen carefully, you'll see it's the same song. It is a cover. Back with one more Madchester story from Gaz Whelan, and we'll do that in a sec.
More of the ongoing history of new music, the podcast edition with Alan Cross.
Here are some final comments about Madchester from Happy Mondays drummer Gaz Whelan.
It's because that time in Manchester, it was bizarre because it was, I'd say, the first time ever you'd be in a club and you'd hear people would come up from London, get a coach, and people don't travel. I mean, for you here to travel 3 hours, it's nothing, but no one travels, certainly not out of London, no one travels to the provincial cities in London. And you'd go in, there would be coaches and train stations, people from London, you could be Saturday daytime or even Fridays in Piccadilly Station in Manchester in like lunchtime. All these Londoners piling off to go, and staying in Manchester for the weekend. And it was mad and it just got silly, and I remember it. I was never Bez still to this day he's wild, and he always will be. I had my moments, but I also liked a bit of clarity. I like to know what was going on. Someone had to kind of have their head together when we were doing stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, I wasn't, I was no page boy.
Well, you weren't no Sean.
No, but Sean, no, but no, I wasn't. No, Sean was kind of. Don't know why Sean. Yeah, he's shy. Sean's shy, so that's why he did it. He was shy, basically, and we were kind of all kind of insecure. It's a class thing in England. It's a working class thing. You don't get above your station. It's really hard to explain, but it's kind of like if you're working class and you make something or you do something, you got to know. You always know your place. It's strange. Yeah, it's true. And we all subscribe to it. If I got an airplane and the pilot says we're going to fly, I'm flying back in. He's got a Manchester accent. I might get me off this plane. I don't. But if he's called Giles and he speaks from Roxbury driving, I feel okay,
And that's the way it was during the Madchester era. Technical production for this one was by Rob Johnston and Mike Sullivan. Thanks to Gaz. I'm Alan Cross.
You've been listening to the ongoing history of new music, the podcast edition with Alan Cross. Subscribe to the podcast at iTunes and through Google Play.